He looked at me, his eyes clear despite the fading light within them. "You all run around," he whispered, a faint smile playing on his lips, "as if you have 1,000 years." That was Arthur. And those words, they didn't just land, they burrowed deep. I was one of you all, wasn't I? Always chasing the next deadline, the next appointment, the next fleeting distraction. The illusion of forever was a comfortable blanket I had wrapped around myself, never questioning its flimsy threads until Arthur with his quiet wisdom began to pull it away, thread by painstaking thread. The hospice room was quiet, a stark contrast to the noise in my head. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, each one a tiny ephemeral star. He was propped up in bed, a fragile figure against the stark white sheets. Yet, there was a strength in his gaze, a profound stillness that seemed to absorb the frantic energy I carried into the room. Arthur's statement about 1,000 years echoed in my mind long after I left his room that first day. We live as if time is an infinite resource, squandering moments on trivialities, postponing joy, and delaying connection. Our subsequent meetings fell into a gentle rhythm. I would arrive, often flustered from the outside world, and Arthur would greet me with that same unflinching presence. His physical body was clearly weakening, the signs of his illness more pronounced each time, yet his spirit, his awareness seemed to sharpen, to become more luminous. He wasn't fighting, he was observing, accepting, and, in his own quiet way, teaching. He watched the world from his window with an intensity I had never before witnessed, as if seeing the sky, the trees, the passing clouds for the very first time, every time. His gaze was remarkable. When he looked at you, he truly saw you. It was a gaze free of judgment, full of a quiet curiosity and a deep, settled peace. In a world that constantly bombards us with stimuli, demanding our fractured attention, Arthur's focused presence was a revelation. He was simply there, with you, in that moment. Arthur didn't impart grand philosophical treatises or complex life strategies. His wisdom was far simpler, yet infinitely more profound. He taught me about the sacredness of small things, the overlooked miracles that populate our daily lives. He would describe the taste of his morning tea with such detail and appreciation, you'd think it was the most exquisite nectar. He'd marvel at the way the sunlight caught the edge of a water glass, creating a tiny rainbow. These were things I barely registered in my haste, dismissing them as mundane, yet for him, they were sources of genuine joy and wonder. He spoke of the simple pleasure of feeling the warmth of a blanket, the sound of rain against the window pane, the scent of a flower someone had brought him. He found beauty in the ordinary, a beauty I had become blind to in my relentless pursuit of the extraordinary. He showed me that life's richness isn't always found in grand achievements or dramatic events, but often resides in the quiet appreciation of the present moment. His perspective was a gentle rebuke to my own tendency to undervalue these quiet blessings. Watching Arthur, listening to him, I began to see his perspective on death not as a morbid preoccupation, but as a profound critique of how so many of us live, or rather, how we fail to live. His acceptance of his own mortality wasn't passive resignation. It was an active engagement with the life he still possessed. This threw my own life into sharp relief. I wasn't facing death, yet I often lived as if I were already half absent. My mind perpetually racing ahead, rarely settling in the now. My days were measured in minutes ticked off, tasks completed, rather than moments truly experienced. His slow, intentional way of being was a mirror reflecting my own constant rush. Arthur, with nowhere to rush to, had found a richness in slowness that I had never considered. He savored his food, he savored conversations, he savored the view from his window. His life, though confined to a small room, felt more expansive in its depth of experience than my own, lived across a much wider yet often shallower canvas. Arthur showed me that a life could be full even in its final, quiet chapters, full of awareness, appreciation, and love. The news of Arthur's passing came on a gray, drizzly morning much like any other, yet it wasn't. When I heard, the world seemed to stop for a moment. The usual urgency of my day, the clamor of my to-do list suddenly felt trivial, almost absurd. A profound silence descended, not unlike the silences I had shared with him in his sunlit room. It was a silence filled with a sense of loss, but also with a strange clarity. His physical absence was a stark punctuation mark, underscoring the finite nature of our time here. A truth he had embodied so gracefully. In the days that followed, his words, his quiet example, began to resonate even more deeply. The lessons he had imparted, which I had intellectually understood, now started to seep into my very being. It was as if his death was the final, most poignant lesson. I found myself pausing more often, noticing the small things he had cherished. The way the rain streaked down my office window, the taste of my morning coffee, the brief, friendly exchange with a stranger. Years have passed since Arthur left this world. Today is June 3, 2025, and the memory of him remains a guiding light, a gentle compass pointing me towards a more intentional way of being. His lessons were not a one-time revelation, but an ongoing practice. The tendency to slip back into old habits of rushing and distraction is always there, a testament to the pervasive culture of busyness we live in. But now, I have a counterpoint. A vivid memory of a man who found profound meaning in stillness and presence, even as his time was visibly running out. I try, imperfectly but persistently, to carry his wisdom into my everyday life. It means consciously choosing to put down my phone during conversations, to truly listen when someone is speaking, to savor the simple pleasures, a walk in the park, a shared meal, a quiet moment of reflection. It means recognizing that this moment, right now, is all we are ever truly guaranteed. It's about finding the sacred in the ordinary, just as Arthur did. It's about understanding that being present is not a passive state, but an active engagement with life itself, a choice we make again and again. Arthur's most powerful message was unspoken, lived through his very being in those final months. Time is fleeting.